I'm Veronica Dudo. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, deadly weekend. A man is shot and killed by an immigration officer in Minnesota, and the repercussions are being felt across the country. Ice, snow, sleet, and more. Much of America is digging out today after a massive winter storm. What lies ahead? Plus, a world-changing conversion.
We are one. We already are. Let us recognize it, experience it, and make it visible.
We'll take you to Rome to show you how Pope Leo celebrated one of the most important feasts of the year. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the Feast of Saints Timothy and Titus. Our top story tonight, President Donald Trump posts on Truth Social, "I am sending Tom Homan to Minnesota tonight." Homan is the president's border czar. The move follows the fatal shootings of 2 people by government officers in Minneapolis, including one just this past weekend. At the same time, a federal judge today heard arguments on whether to pause the immigration crackdown in Minnesota. White House correspondent Owen Jensen joins us with more.
Veronica, good evening. The state of Minnesota and the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul sued the Department of Homeland Security earlier this month, 5 days after Renee Good was shot by an immigration and customs officer. The shooting of Alex Pretty by a Border Patrol officer on Saturday has only added urgency to the case. President Donald Trump says on social media he is calling on Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and every Democrat governor and mayor in the United States of America to formally cooperate with the Trump administration to enforce our nation's laws, rather than resist and stoke the flames of division, chaos, and violence. And this afternoon, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt addressed reporters.
Nobody in the White House, including President Trump, wants to see people getting hurt or killed in America's streets. This includes Renee Good, Alex Pretty, the brave men and women of federal law enforcement, and the many Americans who have been victimized at the hands of illegal alien criminals.
President Trump's surge of immigration officers to heavily Democratic cities came as more Republicans began calling for a deeper investigation and expressing unease with some of the administration's tactics. Over the weekend, 37-year-old Alex Pretty, an intensive care nurse, was killed during a scuffle with federal agents as he steps between an immigration agent and a woman on the street. Videos from the scene show Pretty being pushed by an officer and then a half-dozen agents descend on him. During the scuffle, he is holding a phone but is never seen brandishing the 9mm semi-automatic handgun police say he was licensed to carry. But the White House defends its position.
But let's be clear about the circumstances which led to that moment on Saturday. This tragedy occurred as a result of a deliberate and hostile resistance by Democrat leaders in Minnesota.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz asked the public whether they wanted to support an all-powerful federal government that could menace, kill, and kidnap citizens.
President Trump, you can end this today. Pull these folks back. Do humane, focused, effective immigration control. You've got the support of all of us to do that.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear also criticizes ICE operations. He believes those federal agents need to be retrained.
The way they're going about this, no law enforcement agency in the country would do it, because it not only puts the individual maybe they're trying to apprehend in more danger than they should be in, but it puts everyone else in danger.
And a Minnesota state senator says people are getting angrier as the time goes.
What we're hearing from people who are doing this work, which is going around and taking videos and observing what ICE agents are doing to their immigrant neighbors, people are afraid and they're scared that they can be the next Alex Pretty or that they can be the next Renee Good.
President Trump also says he is calling on Congress to immediately pass legislation to end sanctuary cities. And he posted that he had a good call today with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. The president says they seem to be on a similar wavelength and both want to bring crime down. Veronica, back to you.
Thanks, Owen. Retired Chief Richard Myers has more than 45 years serving in public safety and joins me now. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Now, Alex Pretty is the second person in Minnesota to die during the U.S. immigration crackdown. In these high-stress encounters involving large crowds and armed individuals, what are the training protocols for use of force, and do you believe they were appropriately followed in this case?
every police officer in the United States is trained and understand that in order to lawfully and justifiably use lethal force, there must be an imminent threat to them personally or to another. And imminent means immediate risk. I have not seen on the video of the latest shooting of Mr. Preddy that imminent threat. It might be there, but that calls for a very thorough investigation. And the trend nationally is a third-party, independent, objective investigation. So I haven't heard that. In fact, I've heard state investigators say they're being blocked from obtaining all the evidence. Some interpret the video, and it may well show that it was an ICE agent who removed the weapon that the subject who was ultimately shot was lawfully carrying concealed. If that's the case, what was the imminent threat that authorized them to fire multiple rounds into the person? So this calls for an independent investigation.
So many more questions than answers as things stand now. The White House did say that Governor Tim Walz had called President Trump and that they spoke. The administration says they will reduce the number of ICE agents if state officials cooperate by turning over criminal illegal aliens from jails. Do you think the state will cooperate, and would this help calm down tensions?
Well, there's a difference between what politicians say publicly and the reality of how the conversation went. So I can't comment on the conversation. I wasn't privy to it. I will tell you that in the past, the federal government has asked for more than simply notification when the police have in custody a felon, a violent felon who also is an undocumented immigrant. And I don't think there's too many in policing who would object to that. However, detainers that were quite controversial in many states, the courts ruled they weren't criminal detainers, and therefore sheriffs and police did not have the authority to hold the person until ICE got there. So we've got some legal definitions and terms to sort through. Listen, I don't know a police officer in the U.S., a chief, a sheriff, or a working street cop who doesn't agree with the idea that if there's a violent felon who's subject to deportation, get him out of here. No one disagrees with that. That is a bit inconsistent with what we've seen with hundreds of arrests occurring in the Twin Cities area and other cities.
Rick Myers, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In response to the shooting, Archbishop Paul Coakley, president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, released a statement saying, in part, Pope Leo XIV reminds us that the gospel must be proclaimed and lived in every setting, serving as a leaven of fraternity and peace among all individuals, cultures, religions, and peoples. It is with this in mind that I prayerfully urge calm, restraint, and respect for human life in Minneapolis and all those places where peace is threatened. Public authorities especially have a responsibility to safeguard the well-being of people in service to the common good. The shooting is also threatening government funding. Senate Democrats are vowing to block the measure unless funding for ICE is cut. But the last of the appropriations bills must pass altogether or nothing. If Congress doesn't pass it by Saturday, then another government shutdown will happen. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us in the studio with the latest. Eric.
Well, Veronica, it's great to be with you. It's bad enough, folks, that a major snowstorm is delaying Senate action on the 6 remaining appropriation bills that fund the government. Senators have delayed their scheduled arrival till tomorrow. Now, before the latest ICE shooting, most Democrats were on board with passing all of them, including funding for DHS, which in turn funds ICE. But now that's changed. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy warns that the Senate should only fund DHS if it includes constraints and major reforms.
We can't vote to fund this lawless Department of Homeland Security. We cannot fund a Department of Homeland Security that is murdering American citizens, that is traumatizing little boys and girls all across the country in violation of the law.
And Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said in a statement his caucus won't give the 6 funding measures the 60 votes it needs in its current form. Quote, "What's happening in Minnesota is appalling and unacceptable in any American city. Senate Democrats will not provide the votes to proceed to the appropriations bill if the DHS funding bill is included. If that happens, the Departments of Defense, Transportation, Education, Health and Human Services, and Housing and Urban Development would also shut down. Some senators have suggested creating a separate funding bill just to fund DHS. Republicans have not latched on to that idea. Senator Lindsey Graham scolded Democrats for backing out of the bipartisan agreement, posting on X, quote, "This is reckless and, quite frankly, very disappointing. It appears that Democrats are so wedded to supporting people carrying guns trying to interfere with a lawful arrest that they will shut down the government."
The bill as it stands now actually does have money for body cams, has money for training on interactions with the public. And so I think that, taking away funding, shutting down the government, not funding FEMA and TSA, as well as all of the immigration agencies, is exactly the wrong thing to do here.
Some lawmakers are calling for investigations and even congressional hearings. House lawmakers are currently on recess for the week, so if any changes are made to the latest appropriation bills, they would have to return back to D.C. and vote again on the bill. Right now, Republican senators at least tell me right now that they plan to put the package of the 6 funding bills on the floor as soon as possible. But Veronica, if Democrats stick to their guns, we could be headed for yet another government shutdown.
Thanks so much, Eric. Across much of the country, people are dealing with snow, ice, dangerous temperatures, and power outages after a major winter storm. From Oklahoma to Arkansas, D.C., and New England, millions have been impacted by the winter weather. So far, at least 25 people have died and hundreds of thousands are without electricity. The storm also caused headaches for travelers as thousands of flights were canceled. And it's not over yet. Bitter cold temperatures are forecasted to linger for days. For more on what lies ahead, we're happy to bring on Alana Cameron from Weather Nation. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Of course, yeah, it's been quite a winter storm that's been tracking from state to state. There's still hundreds of thousands of people without power. The worst of it across Louisiana and Mississippi. You can see how many folks are still without power. And some of these counties are completely without power, with estimates of this potentially getting upwards of weeks with some of the power outages. I want to show you how much snow this storm brought. It brought snow, it brought sleet, it brought ice. But some of the snow reports we had from the Red River Valley to the northeast exceeded 2 feet. Some of the highest snowfall totals came across the northeast, where we had up to 30 inches in New York State, and even areas like Pennsylvania just shy of 2 feet of snowfall. Back off into the Red River across Oklahoma and Arkansas and North Texas, we had upwards of a foot of snow in some of these locations. We had a foot of snow in Little Rock, Arkansas, so we definitely had some totals, and we'll continue to monitor the potential for a refreeze tonight and for the next few nights ahead. Up and towards areas like Illinois and Ohio, we had over a foot of snowfall reported across these areas. And then the sleet and the ice was a big concern across these spots. Look at all the sleet and ice reports that span over a majority of the country with up to an inch of ice. This is why so many people in Mississippi and Louisiana are without power. An inch of ice weighing down on those power lines has led to them snapping out there and some big problems. As we look at areas like South Carolina, we had an inch of ice that was reported and a lot of cold weather alerts that remain in place here. What you're looking at here in the deep blue are extreme cold warnings. So even if you do get above freezing for the next couple of afternoons, our nighttime temperatures, especially for folks without power, will be dangerously cold. In some cases, it could be as little as 30 minutes or less, where if you have exposed skin outside, you could be dealing with frostbite and hypothermia. We still have the remainder of some of these winter storm warnings across the Northeast, with temperatures expected to get down to some single digits as far to the south as the Deep South. That's probably going to be the biggest problem for the week ahead, is that we're going to warm up during the days and then refreeze at night. So those roads are still going to be very dangerous with the potential of black ice. Back to you.
Thanks, Alana. Investigators are looking into whether the winter storm caused a deadly jet crash in Maine. The incident left 7 dead and 1 seriously injured. The private jet crashed and caught fire during takeoff Sunday night at Bangor International Airport. The airport director says emergency crews responded within a minute. The National Transportation Safety Board and Federal Aviation Administration are investigating. The airport remains closed until Wednesday. Israel says they have recovered the remains of the last hostage, which will allow the second phase of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas to begin. 24-year-old police officer Ran Gavili was killed on October 7, 2023, and was found in a northern Gaza cemetery. Israel had said it would open the Rafah crossing between Egypt and Gaza after the last hostage was found. Hamas says it has held to the terms of the first phase of the ceasefire. The next part includes disarmament and governance. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is now in the Indian Ocean, in range for any potential military operations in the Middle East. As tensions mount in Iran, allies warn the U.S. not to take military action. This is the third time a strike group has maintained a presence in the Middle East due to rising tensions. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly. TikTok is here to stay. What does the new ownership mean for U.S. data security, and can it keep children safe? We'll discuss. Welcome back. TikTok is here to stay. The popular social media app says it has completed a deal to spin off its U.S. operations, ending a years-long battle over Chinese ownership concerns. The company says the new U.S. joint venture will operate under defined safeguards that protect data security. President Trump is celebrating the deal, saying the app will now be owned by a group of great American patriots and investors. Claire Morell is the author of The Tech Exit, and she is a fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
A group of U.S. investors backed by President Trump have purchased TikTok, but ByteDance, TikTok's Beijing-based owner, still retains almost 20% of a stake in the U.S. operation. Can you explain the safeguards in place, or that will soon be in place, regarding Americans' data?
Yeah, so part of that deal, this is a group of about 7 investors, and one of the investors is a company named Oracle. They are already known for really running a kind of tight security infrastructure and an apparatus, and so part of the deal is that Oracle will now be responsible of that group of investors for ensuring that U.S. user data is completely safe, that in no way will it be accessed by China, and they're also going to be taking over the training of the TikTok algorithm. And so this is also kind of a key piece of this deal, is that they're not going to allow the Chinese company ByteDance to kind of maintain its ownership over the algorithm, but actually Oracle is now going to retrain the TikTok algorithm on only U.S. user data.
Now, as you talked about, retraining the algorithm is huge. What would that look like, and will it be able to keep children safe?
The Chinese company has invented this extremely aggressive algorithm, which is part of the appeal of the app. It becomes very personalized to the user. But we've also seen that that algorithm tends to put very violent, sexual, and drug-related content in the feeds of minor children. And so what I'm really going to be paying attention to is, does this U.S. training of the algorithm solve some of those child safety issues? You know, we've seen several parents say that their children have died as a result of these blackout challenges or other dangerous content fed to their children in the For You feed of TikTok. Not that their kids were looking for this, but the algorithm put it in their feed.
Now, all this is happening as Meta, TikTok, and YouTube are headed to court tomorrow to defend against claims that their platforms harm young people's mental health. How important is this case, and where do you think it goes?
This case is, I think, a critical watershed case in the U.S. We have not seen these companies successfully taken to court before, largely because of a law called Section 230 that immunizes companies for harm from content that they purely host. But what is at issue in these cases? It's not what harm was caused by the content, third-party content they host, but by their own design features. And the argument is that they cannot be immunized under this law for things that were in their power power to control things. And so really what's at issue is features like infinite feeds, autoplay, algorithms that are their product design, and that is what is at stake. And I think that these trials will be very significant to holding these companies accountable and ensuring going forward that our children are protected.
Well, we'll continue to track this. Claire Morell, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, Pope Leo XIV is set to make a historic trip. 44 years of waiting is almost over as the pontiff will travel to the only Spanish-speaking nation in Africa for a historic pastoral visit. Plus, see how the Holy Father closed the week of prayer for Christian unity. A historic journey is taking shape. Equatorial Guinea has officially joined Angola in confirming it will host Pope Leo XIV for his first ever African tour as pontiff. While final dates are still being set, this visit marks a massive milestone. It's the first time a pope will set foot in Equatorial Guinea in over 4 decades, following Pope St. John Paul II's visit in 1982. The country's Catholicism is deeply rooted in its Hispanic history. Spanish is the primary language for liturgy, church administration, and theological training. This is largely due to the influence of Spanish missionaries like the Claretians. The Pope will also visit Portuguese-speaking Angola. Pope Leo urges Christians not to be paralyzed by fear, hesitation, or unfavorable circumstances, but to trust in God's timing and to carry the gospel into every context of human life.
Si tratta di un tempo che suggerirebbe prudenza.
At the Sunday address, the Pope stressed that Jesus began his preaching when he heard that John was arrested, pointing out that while it appeared to be an inopportune moment, it was precisely in this dark situation that Jesus began to bring the light of the good news. He reminded the faithful that God is at work at all times. Every moment is God's time, and that the gospel must be proclaimed and lived in every setting. Pope Leo added that the gospel calls us to dare to trust. Concluding the week of prayer for Christian unity, Pope Leo presided over ecumenical Vespers in Rome. While emphasizing how different Christian denominations share the same faith, he also encouraged them to continue together the mission of spreading the gospel. EWTN Vatican journalist Benedict Sittigren has more.
Unity is essential for the sake of preaching the gospel. The Pope reminded the faithful of this during the celebration of Vespers for the feast of the conversion of St. Paul at the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, marking the close of the week of prayer for Christian unity. Standing near the tomb of St. Paul, he reflected on the conversion of the former persecutor of the Church, who became a fearless preacher of Christ's love.
As we gather before the mortal remains of the Apostle to the Gentiles, we are reminded that his mission is also the mission of all Christians today, to proclaim Christ and to invite everyone to place their trust in him.
Representatives of the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople, the Armenian Apostolic Church, and the Anglican Communion were present at the Vespers, together with other ecumenical groups and pilgrims. Prayers and readings included a passage from St. Paul's letter to the Ephesians, this year's chosen theme for the week of prayer.
I, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness. There is one body and one spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call.
Pope Leo reflected on the repetition of the adjective one in the letter. One body, one spirit, one hope, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, saying, how can these inspired words not touch us deeply? He also recalled reciting the Nicene Creed in Iznik, Turkey, in November 2025 to commemorate the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea, calling it a profound and unforgettable testimony to our unity in Christ.
Yes, we share the same faith in the one and only God, the Father of all people, we confess together the one Lord and true Son of God, Jesus Christ, and the one Holy Spirit, who inspires us and impels us towards full unity and the common witness to the gospel. We are one. We already are. Let us recognize it, experience it, and make it visible.
Manifestiamolo.
The Pope concluded by recalling the tradition of Armenia as the first Christian nation, and prayed that the seeds of the gospel would continue to bear fruit in unity, justice, and holiness for the benefit of peace among the peoples and nations of the whole world. In Rome, Benedikt Cedergren for EWTN News Nightly.
We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, YouTube, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. Good night and God bless.